am always hearing that she joined ISKCON when she was 16 years old and has continued to serve Krishna uninterruptedly all this time. So this is a wonderful example for us. And she's full of wisdom. Rukmini is a preacher, and she's continuously sending out messages of wisdom to all the devotees. So we'd like to hear from you, Rukmini. I give you the microphone and everything. So please go ahead. We will be very eagerly listening to your class. And we are fortunate enough to have you 2 times. So please go ahead, Rukmini. We are so happy.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the very kind invitation. Let me chant some prayers. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chaksun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Sayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Sapadantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangalangayate Girim Yakipastamaham Bande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Vanchakapatarubhyascha Kripasindhu Vaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I'd like to speak tonight a little bit about eagerness and the quintessential verse. Can you hear me? Let me know if you can hear me. Yes? Okay. So the quintessential verse that we have in our Krishna consciousness movement that defines eagerness is this verse from, it's actually from Rupa Goswami's Padyavali, but it's quoted in Chaitanya Charitamrita in several places. Krishna Bhakti Rasabhavitamati Kriyatam Yadi Kutopi Labhyate Tatra Lalyam Api Mulyam Mekalam Janmakoti Sukritai Nalabhyate. Pure devotional service in Krishna consciousness cannot be had even by pious activities in hundreds and thousands of lives. It can be attained only by paying one price, that is, intense greed to obtain it. If it is available somewhere, one must purchase it without delay. So this is, Srila Prabhupada actually took the term Krishna consciousness from this verse, this idea of Krishna Bhakti, Rasa Bhavita, Krishna consciousness. So the only price for purchasing Krishna consciousness is our spontaneous, intense greed to have it, right? Srila Prabhupada was once asked, how can we perfectly serve Krishna? And he said, by your eagerness, by your anxiety. And he was in another place explaining that when we learn to dress Krishna nicely, if we become anxious how to worship, that anxiety is the beginning of what he calls Krishna anxiety. He says, then you will become perfect. And you'll always be anxious for Krishna. That is the perfectional stage. And then he explains that by the regulative sadhana bhakti, it's a way of creating this anxiety. he says. So we must follow and then come to the real anxiety, like Mother Yasoda, like the gopis of Vrindavan. So we read very much about the eagerness of great realized souls, great eagerness to serve and to achieve the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. Srila Prabhupada in his beautiful Vrindavan Bhajan prayers, such eagerness to serve his Guru Maharaj. And maybe you know the story of when Srila Prabhupada was in the dead of night sweeping the courtyard of the Radha Damodar temple. No one was around, just anonymously, secretly, he was sweeping, and he was calling out while he was sweeping, "Hey Gurudev, hey Rup, hey Sanatan, give me your mercy. I cannot achieve my mission, complete my mission, fulfill your mission if you do not give me your mercy." And of course, on his prayers on the Jaladuta, his prayer to the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, where he says, "Please make me your puppet, make me dance, make me dance, make me dance as you like." His Guru Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, also has a beautiful prayer, many prayers in eagerness. This one I thought I would share with you. He says, "Bear in mind that we are not the operators of instruments, but merely instruments. We must constantly offer our music at the lotus feet of Sri Guru. We should practice the work of being a preacher by carrying aloft the banner of Sri Gaur Sundar's divine commands. By perpetual submission to Sri Guru and the Vaishnavas, fixing our eyes on the pole star of the heard transcendental voice. If in that duty, under the guidance of Sri Guru, we are always inspired to discourse about the truth, then no hankering for travel or any veiled form of desire other than the chanting of Harinam will ever strike terror into our hearts." Amazing, right? So then Bhaktivinoda Thakur also has prayers out of eagerness in his Sharanagati. He says, "Please tell me, when will that day be mine, when my offenses end and the taste for the pure holy name is infused within my heart by the power of divine grace?" He says, "When will Lord Nityananda be merciful to me and release me from the illusion of worldliness? When will he give me the shade of his lotus feet and allow me to enter the marketplace of the holy name? I shall buy and plunder the mellows of the name of Hari and become thoroughly intoxicated by those liquid mellows. I shall become stunned. By touching the feet of those great souls who are able to relish those mellows, I will be constantly immersed in the sweet nectar of the holy name." And then finally, his final verse, he says, "And when will there be an awakening in me of compassion for all fallen souls? And when will this Bhakti Vinod, forgetting his own happiness, with a meek heart set out to propagate by humble entreaty the sacred order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu?" Yes, they're just coming in the line of disciplic succession. Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj also had a great eagerness to defy the false Varnashram discrimination that he saw in Vrindavan. There's a story that once he begged a roti from a Vrindavan street sweeper. And hearing about this, the leading men of Vrindavan said to him, "Baba, you are the crest jewel of Vraja. It pains us to hear anyone criticizing you. But now everyone is talking against you. They are saying, Baba's gone mad. If he defies the age-old traditions, what will happen to society?" Babaji Maharaj replied, "You are all learned people. Don't you know the importance of the dust of Vrindavan? It is so surcharged with Krishna Prema that even Lord Brahma desires to become a particle of Vrajaraj. Therefore, isn't a Vrindavan sweeper who is constantly serving the dust, breathing it, rolling in it, bathing in it, more pure than anyone else?" Silence filled the air, indicating everyone's acceptance of Babaji's reply. So, of course, we hear how Rupa and Sanatan Goswami were so eager to escape the positions of power, to escape prison. And Rupa Goswami's prayer to Srimati Radharani, well, here's what he says. He says, I, a distressed soul belonging to you, beg you with sweet words while rolling on the banks of the Yamuna. Although I am unfit, an offender with a crooked mind, please bestow on me a fragment of the gift of service to you. This unhappy soul is not fit to be neglected by you, for you have a butter-soft heart that melts constantly by the warmth of your compassion. So, yes, Rupa Goswami's eagerness. So, yes, Raghunath Das Goswami was always trying to run away from home, seeking the shelter of Lord Chaitanya. Raghunath Das Goswami in his Manasiksha, beseeching his mind in prayers. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami immediately leaving home after hearing the order of Lord Nityananda in his dream. Narottam Das Thakur is running away from home also, his songs of longing separation, desiring to break his head against stone in feelings of separation from the previous acharyas. And Prabhadananda Saraswati, in the ecstatic madness of his Chaitanya Chandramrita, he says, Vanchitosmi, vanchitosmi, vanchitosmi na sansaya, Bisvam Gora Rase Magnam Sarsopi Mama Na Bhavat. I am cheated, I am cheated, I am cheated. Of this there is no doubt. Although Lord Gora has plunged the entire earth in a flood of love of Krishna, I have not been touched by even a single drop. So yes, King Kulashekhar's prayers, Krishna Tvadiya Padapankaja Panjarantang Adyaiva Visatu Me Manasa Raja Hangsa Prana Prayana Samaye Kapabata Pitu Kantavaro Danavido Smaranam Kutaste. He says, I pray that the swan of my mind may immediately sink down to the stems of the lotus feet of your lordship and be locked up in their network. Otherwise, at the time of my final breath, when my throat will choke up with cough, how will it be possible to think of you? So many examples of eagerness. Ritrasura, longing to see his beloved Lord, like a baby bird or a baby calf longing for their mothers, or a devoted wife longing for her husband. And ultimately, the greatest of all devotees, the gopis of Vrindavan, so eager to just scrape the dust of their feet just to cure Krishna's headache. And so many more. We could be spending many days relishing prayers spoken in the mood of eagerness by these greatest devotees. But I wanted to take this conversation in a little bit of a different direction, if that's all right with you. I want to ask you to visualize a continuum. So on one end, we have the beginning stage of material anxiety. We all know it well, hankering, lamenting within the three modes of material nature, rotating life after life among various species. And then coming along to a center point, a state of equilibrium, like the yogic shanti of oneness, the Brahmabhuta stage. As Bhagavad Gita 1854 says, Brahmabhuta prasanatma nasochati nakankshati samasarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktim labhate param. To be equally disposed to every living entity, to not have any hankering or lamentation. And then coming along, continuing along this continuum to the stage of what Prabhupada was previously calling Krishna anxiety. So it seems to me that authentic, realized eagerness that's expressed by these great souls is actually rooted in true humility. But sometimes in ISKCON, we feel or we see eagerness that seems immature or inappropriate and not so sanguine, sometimes painful to ourselves, to others, or embarrassing to our society when they're not rooted in true humility. So thinking of the idea of eagerness in terms of 3 levels of eagerness, I was thinking of the 3 stages of, first of all, Uttamadhikari, the eagerness of an Uttama Adhikari, who's expert in logic and understanding the revealed scriptures, who always has firm conviction and deep faith that's not blind. He's considered to be a topmost devotee of the Lord. And then in the middle, the eagerness of a Madhyam Adhikari, one who may be not very expert in argument and logic based on revealed scriptures, but who has firm faith, is considered to be in this middle stage, this second class devotee. He's also considered to be most fortunate. And in the Kanistha stage, we're confused and we're easily dissuaded from the goal. So one whose faith is soft and pliable is called a neophyte. But by gradually following the process, he can also rise to the level of a first-class devotee. So in ISKCON, we aspire for the eagerness we read about and see in the lives and the prayers of the Uttam Adhikari devotees. And we try to live with fixed faith of the Madhyam Adhikaris. We aspire for that Madhyama platform. But I believe we have to work and strive very hard to uplift our ISKCON culture, to rise above the immature and critical mentality of the Kanistha devotees. So eagerness that is not grounded in deep humility can be disruptive to our greater worldwide Vaishnava Sangha. Realized souls are strict with themselves while showing deep compassion for others. And they live far beyond judgmentalism and fault finding because they're rooted in a deep faith for the Rasayana Katha, the life-giving descriptions of Krishna's name, form, qualities, pastimes, and the glories of his beloved devotees. So I wanted to share some stories with you of eagerness that sometimes causes a disturbance or a disruption, and sometimes causes other people to be repelled and not attracted by our association. There are many examples of immature or inappropriate eagerness, both in ISKCON and in other religions. And in the beginning of Madhurya Kadambini, you can read about 6 stages of immature or anistita devotion. One very senior ISKCON guru, who is a GBC emeritus, is very fond of saying that we come to Krishna consciousness, we move into the temple and become pure devotees. Then, if we stay around long enough, we can eventually become caring human beings. So it sounds a little bit sarcastic, doesn't it? But it's important to consider, I think, can we really jump to profound realized eagerness without deep realization of humility and tolerance and the giving up of anarthas and unwanted desires? So, of course, there's initial eagerness or faith, shraddha, that pulls us forward to associate with devotees. But if it doesn't mature and ripen toward the giving up of unwanted habits, anartha nivriti, then that immaturity can cause disruptions and disturbances to one's own faith, to the faith of others, and disturbances in the greater ISKCON and the society at large. So, eagerness without humility, we can see many examples. Maybe you can think of some also. And this is going to be my assignment to you for next week also. I want you to think of some examples that you've seen in different services we render in ISKCON as teachers, as parents, as book distributors, as temple managers. And sometimes we even see a mockery of our behavior or language of eagerness without humility. Sometimes we see that imitated by our children. So I'd like to share some stories of this kind of immature eagerness. The first one is a story when Srila Prabhupada was leaving from an airport lounge in New York. And the devotees were having a big, boisterous kirtan. And the airport officials were very disturbed. And they were trying to get the devotees to leave. But every devotee they spoke to, the devotees would just go, leave me alone, you're disturbing my ecstasy. And so finally, one of the leaders, Rupa Prabhu, in desperation, he stood up on one of the chairs in the airport lounge and he started calling out very loudly, all the devotees must leave the airport lounge immediately. And everyone ignored him. No one moved an inch and everyone was just ignoring him. And guess who got up to leave? One devotee, Srila Prabhupada. He was the only one who got up to leave to obey the airport officials, and then everyone followed. So this is immaturity of eagerness to want to be with Prabhupada in an airport lounge. Here's another story that I think is very important. There was a Gurukula teacher in Dallas, and she had to care for many, many children, both as an ashram teacher and as an academic teacher. And she was thinking she should be very strict. So one morning, Srila Prabhupada was visiting Dallas and he was lecturing in the temple room. And one little girl began to cry. And so this teacher didn't know what to do. So she took the little girl out and she stuck her in the corner of a classroom. And she told her, sit down here and don't move. And she just left her there by herself. And then this teacher went back into the temple room to eagerly listen to Srila Prabhupada's lecture. So then guess what happened? When Srila Prabhupada completed his lecture, he walked out of the temple room, down the hall, and right into that classroom where that little girl had been put all by herself. And she had fallen asleep in the corner. And when she saw Srila Prabhupada, she got up, she said, oh, Prabhupada. And she offered her obeisances to him very, very enthusiastically. And Prabhupada walked right over to her and he was rubbing her head and speaking to her in very encouraging words. So this little child felt so unloved. And here the teacher is just eager to go back into the temple to hear Srila Prabhupada's lecture, right? So let me tell you an example of myself that was very inappropriate eagerness to do service. This is a very embarrassing story, actually. I was the pujari in Boston at one time. And when I was growing up, when I was a child, I had a younger sister. And she was my best friend. And she was my playmate when we were growing up. But when, I'm so embarrassed to tell this story. But when I came to Krishna consciousness, I didn't stay in touch with her. And she missed me very much. So one day, she came to the door of the Boston temple and I opened the door and I, instead of greeting her lovingly and fondly, my younger sister, I just looked at her and I said, very phonetically, oh, great, someone to help with the flower vases. Can you imagine? So this is like a false eagerness in trying to be a fired up pujari in devotional service. So, yeah. Let's see, there's so many stories. The time is getting short. Let me just tell one little short one. One book distributor, lady book distributor, told a story that she was distributing books and Prabhupada was watching her. And she was not being very kind to the people she was approaching. And afterwards, Srila Prabhupada said to her, you should be very kind to the people that you speak to. So Prabhupada corrected her, false desire to be very eager, but not be very kind. I wanted to share two examples of our children imitating our so-called fired up eagerness in not very kind and appropriate ways. There's a story when my son was in the Gurukula in Gitanagari. The neighbors owned a property that was right on the river, and they were allowing the devotee children to come and swim in their swimming hole in that place. It was very kind of them. They didn't have to do that. So one day when all the little boys were swimming, the owner of the property had their little boy was there too. And so this little devotee child said, let's go swim somewhere else where we don't have to swim with karmis. And how embarrassing that was. You know, here's this little child in just imitating the language that he hears from the adults, you know, trying to think of himself as so eager and fired up to not associate with karmis, right? Eagerness to discriminate against others in service. Yeah, so yes, there's another story. One of my god sisters was put in charge of a nursery, and she thought she would have engaged the children in having a little kirtan. So she said, who wants to play the mridanga? And one little girl raised her hand, I do. And one of the little boys said, you can't play the mridanga, you're a girl. So yeah, such unfortunate imitation and discrimination in immature devotional service. So in conclusion, I just wanted to say that we need to grow in our eagerness and make sure it's rooted in humility and deep compassion to others. And we need to evolve the culture of ISKCON beyond the neophyte stage to the stage of eagerness, Krishna Bhakti, Rasabhavita Mati. And so next week we have another session on Saturday. And I want to give you this assignment. I want to write your own affirmations of what is authentic eagerness, and maybe give some examples that you can share that you've seen in your own experience that we should avoid of inappropriate, immature, inappropriate eagerness that's not rooted in humility and compassion. So these are a few thoughts from me. Thank you very much. Maybe you have some realizations or something you'd like to share.
Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. I'm sorry, I'm not switching on my camera right now.
Haribo, nice to see you. Haribo.
So Mataji, thank you so much for sharing references from different places and our acharyas. And what hit me quite a bit was inappropriate eagerness. And
Yeah.
all of us have probably gone through it sometime or the other in our lives. And there's so many examples of it and how it actually turns off people from devotional service. Sometimes when we display this kind of inappropriate eagerness, then people who have soft hearts, they get really turned off. They don't want to meet the devotees. They don't want to follow the process of devotional service. So in a way, it's a big violence.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Mataji. I thought that was really good because we rarely hear about inappropriate eagerness. We normally hear about what eagerness is and how lolium is the way to go. But we rarely hear that, inappropriate eagerness can be so damaging.
Yeah, we really have to evolve our eagerness beyond the neophyte stage. I think we have to really evolve beyond the Kanista culture in ISKCON and evolve to the Madhyam stage and aspire for the true Uttam Adhikari stage of true Lalyam. Something comes to mind. In New York City, there's a man who stands in a busy place where traffic is flowing in all directions. And he stands there with a big sign that says, Jesus is the only way. You're going to hell if you don't accept Jesus in your heart. And everyone finds him to be quite fanatical and quite comical, and no one really takes him very seriously. So I think we have to be very cautious also that we do not become fanatical. What is the definition of a fanatical person? One who is full of pride and doesn't see with compassion the other people who are traveling along the path in different places. Srila Prabhupada was so very compassionate, and all the Vaishnavas are compassionate, you know. Maybe someone else has some other thoughts or reflections.
Thank you so much, Mataji. I always wondered how to develop eagerness, and I asked these questions a lot of times. But one line you spoke in the starting of the lecture really answered that question. You said regulative sadhana bhakti is a way to develop eagerness. So eagerness will also come from regulative sadhana bhakti. So this really touched me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And it's so interesting that Prabhupada calls it Krishna anxiety. I mean, usually we come to Krishna consciousness to get out of anxiety, right? We grew up with so much anxiety from our families, from our work, from our school, but we come to Krishna consciousness to get more anxiety. So this stage of shanti is just really a middle stage. That's the goal of the yogis. But the real Vaishnavas, they're seeking that stage of anxiety for Krishna. So, but we have to be careful that we're not putting other people in anxiety, stepping on their heads as we try to come to the stage of volume. You know, there's a saying, fools rush in where angels fear to tread. So we have to be careful not to trample other people as we're aspiring for true Krishna bhakti. Yeah. Thank you. I was thinking in our Shastras, there's so many examples. Really, we could have a whole other hour speaking of other examples. I hope you all will bring some offerings of your examples of eagerness, stories that you'd like to share from Shastra next time. I'd like to hear from you. So this is the assignment for all of you for next week. And also examples of this inappropriate eagerness that maybe has put you back or put you off or maybe put other people. You know, someone goes home and they go to see their mother and they say, "You're a demon, you don't chant 16 rounds," and you know, all of this kind of fanaticism. Yeah, but we have examples in our Shastra. Even the dog of Shivananda Sen was so eager, right? So if a dog can have such authentic eagerness, we can also aspire for authentic eagerness. So what do you all think? Anybody else have any reflections or what was important? Thank you. Some of you have said what was important for you. So maybe someone else, there are 23 participants. Maybe someone else can share what was important for you. I see all of your names, or I only see some of your names.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam.
You are literally embodiment of the eagerness. And when I heard that you have come at the age of 16, I'm really feel that I should get that eagerness from you. So I really appreciate you, Mataji. No words to express my feelings. Thank you very much, Mataji, for this class. Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you. Well, sometimes when we come to Krishna consciousness, especially at the age of 16, we cause some pain to our family, you know, but we have to be careful to go back and try to smooth over those offenses and try to help them also understand. Like I mentioned my sister. I was very fanatical to my sister when she came to the temple in Boston. But now, by the grace of some very kind devotees in India, she's become attracted to Krishna consciousness. And now she's chanting, she's doing 16 rounds every day. She's practicing and worshiping Lord Jagannath. So sometimes even if we're too fanatical and make mistakes, by the mercy of the other devotees, then someone can cover up for our mistakes. But we have to try, I think. I think there are many, many people who could be attracted to Krishna consciousness, especially in India, where everyone is really loves Krishna and is pious by nature, if we're not too fanatical. But when we're storming, as they say, storming the gates of heaven, then many people think, I can't relate to this craziness. And I've heard from many people who have family or people they went to college with in India, people think, I can't relate to this craziness, this fanaticism. So we have to try to present Prabhupada's mission in a very cultured way, in a very compassionate way. I think that would please him very much.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you. And this is a lesson for us also, because sometimes we show too much eagerness, and that, as you said, we may lose some devotees. They won't come in this line, or they may go back. So we have to be very careful. Mataji, please bless us also that we also get this realization and apply in our life, Mataji. Thank you.
I pray for all of us to become more sensitive and more caring the way Srila Prabhupada was. There's another story of Prabhupada that when he went to New York, the landlord in the little storefront on 2nd Avenue, he liked Prabhupada, but he didn't like the young men who were coming. And Prabhupada told all of these young men to think of this landlord, treat him just like your own father. And Prabhupada used to help him by taking out the garbage. Can you imagine? Prabhupada had just come from Vrindavan, such a great saint. And he was so respected in Vrindavan and always discoursing with the leading people of Vrindavan, all the great sadhus. But he comes to New York and he's helping this Polish man empty the garbage, take out the trash. Who knows what was in that garbage? Must have been for sure meat and liquor and who knows what else. And Prabhupada was so humble. He was helping this man take out the garbage. Actually, once one of Prabhupada's godbrothers said, I could have done what Prabhupada did. I could have made so many disciples in the West, but I did not have the mentality to associate with so many low-class people. So what was he saying really? He was saying that he didn't have the mentality of compassion that Srila Prabhupada embodied. He didn't have the compassion to associate and to uplift so many fallen people. So what do you think? Any other thoughts on appropriate?
You said we should smooth over the things which we have disturbed in the past. So can you speak a little on that? What did you mean really by smoothing over?
Well, I'll give you an example. Perhaps you know the story of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. There was a big festival in the Gaudiya Math, and they were decorating the temple, and there were many garlands, and everything was festive. And what happened was one of the brahmacharis left. He had I believe it was, he had a fall down with a lady, and out of embarrassment, he left. And nobody really paid much attention because they were so busy getting ready for this festival. So when the Guru Maharaj came, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati came, he saw all the festivities and all the decorations, but he said, where is so-and-so brahmachari? And everyone was kind of like, he left. We don't know where he went. And so Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, talk about smoothing over, right? Srila Bhakti Siddhanta said, go bring him back. And no one had any idea where he was, but someone remembered that he knew how to fix watches. And so they went and looked in all the shops where the people were selling watches or fixing watches, and they found him. And they begged him to come back. And by the mercy of and the compassion of his Guru Maharaj, he came back and he was welcomed and he was reinstated. And actually he became an acharya later on. So that's what I mean by smoothing over. There was once one disciple, if you read in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada's purports about Gajendra, there was one sannyasi who had left the sannyas order. And Prabhupada was telling the other disciples, by the way you're treating him, he won't come back. And he did come back, and Prabhupada treated him very, very kindly and welcomed him and said, yes, you can serve as a grihastha now. And so that's what I mean by smoothing it over. Sometimes our behavior makes people unable to serve, unable to come back, unable to make progress. Because of what? Because of so much judgmentalism and neophyte kanista thinking. So we didn't come to Krishna consciousness for judgmentalism and criticism and fault finding and don't do this and don't do this and don't do this. We came to get a taste for Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavitamati. So that's what we have to experience ourselves. Of course, if we don't get it ourselves, how can we give it, right? If we're not experiencing any taste for that, how can we give it to anyone else? So we have to get that taste ourselves and share it with others authentically.
Hare Krishna,
Thank you.
Mataji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Haribo.
How we can maintain our enthusiasm? We are sadhaka bhaktas. Sometimes they are up and they are down in any situation, especially when there are adverse situations. We lose our enthusiasm. So how we can maintain that? And mind gets very heavy in such situations. How we overcome those situations?
Yeah, that's a very important question. You know, think of Srila Prabhupada and what he had to undergo. There's one letter Srila Prabhupada wrote. Apparently someone had written to him criticizing that such and such devotee really should leave the temple. He was unqualified, this and that. And Prabhupada said, try to tolerate him the way I am tolerating you. It was very striking that he said that. Try to tolerate him the way I am tolerating you. And think of what Prabhupada had to undergo to give us these treasures of Krishna consciousness. Think of the great devotees and what they had to tolerate. And try to see that what we have to tolerate is very small compared to what they've had to tolerate. And pray to Krishna. Try to do each act as in consciousness and remembrance. You know, I'm speaking right now as an offering to Krishna. I'm chanting my japa now in order to please Krishna and beg the Lord to remove the obstacles on the path of bhakti, and also associate with people who have some taste for Krishna consciousness. Try to get the association, and you can ask them, if you find someone who has that Krishna bhakti rasa, you can ask them, how can I get it? What can I do? I'm supposed to purchase it at any price, and I know that you have it, so please tell me. So it's contagious. Sometimes it's said that Krishna consciousness is caught more than it's taught. So try to catch it. It's very contagious, and you can catch it. Like right now, everyone is concerned about catching the coronavirus, but the Krishna Bhakti virus will help us come alive. So try to catch that from someone. You can get it from, you're there in Sri Vrindavan Dham, you can get it from the dust, you can get it from those who worship the dust, you can get it from Krishna's holy name, which is so accessible there. But I think we have to cry for it. I think we tend to be complacent and we take things for granted. So the time is very short. In this time of COVID virus, any one of us could die at any moment. And so we have to understand that the clock is ticking and we have to take things very seriously and chant the holy name as though this is the first name I've ever chanted and perhaps the last one I will ever chant. And no matter what we're doing, try to do it as an offering for Krishna. Right now I'm picking up this pen to please Krishna. Right now I'm picking up this paper on the floor for the pleasure of Krishna. Right now I'm walking from the hall into the room as an offering to Krishna. And, you know, and then did we deserve another day of life today? Thank the Lord that he's given us another breath of life today. So this is Krishna consciousness, seeing Krishna in the sunrise and the moonrise and the taste of water, and living with gratitude. You know, we don't talk so much about gratitude in Krishna consciousness, but Srila Prabhupada was so grateful and he lived in gratitude. And I like to call the path of bhakti the yoga of gratitude, because really the whole process of sacrifice or giving back to the Lord is a process of saying thanks and thanksgiving. Yeah, giving gratitude for all that we've received. So I think gratitude is a big key, and just paying attention, like how can we not be complacent? We can pay attention to the gifts that we're receiving. And I've heard some devotees say, try to thank at least 3 devotees every day. Try to thank at least 3 devotees. Like maybe you're a brahmachari living in the ashram. There's certain people that no one ever thanks them for the services they do. Maybe the people who take out the trash, or the person who lights the fire in the morning, or the person who washes the pots. Thank them. And sometimes even big managers need to be thanked. And everyone needs appreciation, and attention is the greatest gift that we can give to Krishna's holy name as we're chanting, but also that appreciative attention we can give to each other. Thank you so much. I'm living by the blessings of your association. Thank you for reminding me to chant the holy name so seriously. Thank you for your example. So there's so many things. If we keep our eyes open, there are things that we can thank others for at every moment. Maybe that's a little bit helpful.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you so much for your wonderful answer. In continuation to my question, I would say sometimes we are expecting a result in our project, though it is an offering to Krishna and Prabhupada, but we don't get the result that we're expecting. And those are the moments that we lose our enthusiasm. In such cases, when we're offering a result to Krishna and we don't get what we are wanting to offer to Krishna, how we can maintain our steadiness there.
Did you ever read Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita?
Yes, Mataji. Yes, Mataji.
If you read the first volume of the Prabhupada Lilamrita, and you didn't know that there were any volumes after the first one, you would think, wow, this is a story of failure. This is a lifetime story of failure. This man was a complete failure, right? And
Yes.
Prabhupada had to tolerate so much, so many times. Prabhupada said once, failure is the pillar of success for those who are trying. So he just kept trying. And he had failure after failure after failure. And he just kept trying and that's what he wrote when he was on the Jaladuta boat. He said to Krishna, you can make me a success or failure as you like, right? You can make me a success or failure as you like. So this is fruit of thinking that, oh, I don't see the results. So I'm going back to my mother. I'm going back to college. I'm going back to whatever. Not that you can't go to college in Krishna consciousness. You're all in college at the VIHE, actually. But failure is the pillar of success for someone who's trying. And someone who accepts failure as failure, that's because they haven't tried enough. So failure or success, that's up to Krishna. We're just offering our service as humble servants. Failure or success is up to the master. The servant is just trying to serve with love and devotion. Krishna can give the result or not give the result. He can send us to hell or he can send us to heaven. He can send us back here. Someone asked Prabhupada, is there any discussion of Bhagavad Gita in the hellish planets? This was in London. He said, yes, London is a hellish planet. So Prabhupada went to so many different hellish planets to preach. And he was just trying to offer his service to Krishna. Maybe that's a little bit helpful.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you so much. Are you taking more questions? Or the time is up?
We have a few minutes. So all of you, we have another session next Saturday. And so I'm giving you an assignment to please write your affirmations of humble eagerness, and also maybe some examples that you've seen in your life to not follow of inappropriate, immature, false eagerness. Is that all right?
Mataji,
Because we have to evolve out of the Kanista culture. We have to evolve to the Madhyam and Uttama culture in ISKCON. That's my hope. That's my
Mataji,
eagerness. Yes.
Can you please repeat the assignment of homework?
Yes. So the assignment is, for next week, I would like you to bring your own affirmations of authentic eagerness. From your heart, what is authentic eagerness, right? Not immature or inappropriate, fanatical, crazy eagerness, but authentic, humble, compassionate eagerness. And I'd like you to also, conversely, on the other side, bring some examples of, we don't want to hear the names, but we want to see some examples of inappropriate eagerness that will not bring a good reputation to Srila Prabhupada's ISKCON. So those are 2 assignments. Is that all right?
Yes, Mataji. We'll work on it, Mataji. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Mataji, I have a small question.
Yes.
You were speaking about smoothing up the relationships. I asked you earlier also. So you answered it in the context of a devotee who has left. And you were also talking earlier. You were talking about your sister also. So how can we smoothen up relationships which we have disrupted, and people are not in Krishna consciousness, or they never even came to Krishna consciousness, but we have disturbed them a lot.
Thank you. Good question. We can never underestimate the power of an apology, because when you go to someone and sincerely apologize for something you might have said or done, it's so heart-opening. And is there time? Can I tell a story? Is there a few minutes of time I can tell a story? Yes?
Yes.
The organizers? Okay. I'm going to tell you a story. There's a story about a man. He was a music teacher. And he, with great trouble and expense, he arranged to bring his class of music students to another city, to New York City, to hear a concert that was being given by a very famous composer and conductor. And so he, with great trouble and expense, he brought these students there all the way to New York. And then when they got there, 3 of the girls in the class skipped the class and they went shopping. And he was so angry and so upset that they had done that. And the next morning he was complaining to his wife, and he was saying to her, "Those ungrateful brats, I went to so much trouble, so much expense. They had no idea how important this was for their musical education, and they just went off and went shopping." And so his wife was very wise, and she said, "I think you owe them an apology." And he said, "What? Me owe them an apology? They should be apologizing to me, not me to them." And so she said, "Well, I think you should think about it." And so he did. He thought about it. And then the next day he called those 3 girls into his classroom to speak to them. And they were looking at each other, and they knew they were in trouble because they knew what they had done. So they're looking at each other and they're thinking, wow, are we going to get expelled? Are we going to flunk this class? Or what's going to happen to us? Are we going to get reprimanded? What's going to happen? And so he said to them, I called you here because I want to apologize to you. And they were shocked. You're going to apologize to us? We should be apologizing to you. And he said, I need to apologize to you because I really failed you as your teacher. And I failed to impress upon you the importance that this concert, how important this concert was for your musical education. So I have to apologize to you because I failed you as your teacher. And so just imagine how that changed their consciousness. They realized their own mistake. And because he was so humble, they were able to really learn the lesson. So if you feel like you've offended someone, or you feel like someone's suffering. Maybe there's someone that you just notice who's depressed around the ashram. You can go to them, you can bring them some tulsi, you can bring them some flowers, bring them some maha sweets, and say, you know, I just wanted to really appreciate you, that you've always been such a sincere devotee, and in some way appreciate them. Or if you've done something to offend someone, apologize. You know, like we talk about offending devotees, we don't talk very much about taking offense. We should not be so eager to take offense also. There's a nice expression that's going around these days. It's a little mantra that goes like this: I live to be corrected. It's nice, right? I live to be corrected. So please show me the way. Show me what I'm doing wrong. I need to learn from you. So this is the attitude of a genuine, authentic devotee. So I think we need more of this in our personal dealings. So yeah, the ones who haven't gone away, encourage them, appreciate them, catch them, you know, like we always like to catch people doing it wrong, catch them doing it right. If you have kids, if you have godbrothers in the ashram, you have someone you're sharing an ashram with, catch them doing it right. Wow, I noticed that you washed the dishes. You didn't leave them in the sink. Thank you so much. I appreciate that so much. And we live by appreciation. Thank you. All of us do.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you so much.
Thank you. What a fool I am trying to speak to Vrajavasis like you. I should be hearing from all of you. You're all rolling in the dust of Vrindavan. And here I am, this fake New Yorker, talking to you. Who am I? You're muted, Prashanta.
I say New York is the most holy place in the world.
Haribo.
That's where Prabhupada planted the seed of ISKCON and devotional service for the entire world.
Prabhupada had to come to pick up the most fallen first.
So we would like to thank you, Rukmini. I hope that you will have realized something. We get so many speakers for our classes, the value classes, but this time we have someone who speaks from realizations. Imagine becoming a devotee at the age of 16, going through what used to exist, the Brahmacharini ashram, and doing lots of service, and then going through a whole life, going through all the transformations that ISKCON has gone through. Some of them not very, I was hearing Rasala Prabhu asking about how we get discouraged. I'm sure that those who survive the development of ISKCON had a million reasons to get discouraged on the way. There were such difficult situations. And you say you were talking of inappropriate eagerness. So much has gone on in that field and still going on. Somebody picking a topic and going for it and being so eager to propagate it all over the movement. So much has gone on. So anyone who has survived has certainly grown very deep roots in Krishna consciousness. So thank you so much, Rukmini, for giving us your association. We could perceive your saintly nature and how much you have learned, not only in the field of eagerness, but in the field of compassion, in the field of tolerance, in the field of forgiveness. I think that you are a living example of our value classes. Now, I'm not exaggerating here. We can feel your presence. So please, all of you, take advantage, do your homework, come up with all the examples that she has requested, and encourage the other students to take part in the next class. We have more students, but now it's Kartik, so everybody's kind of busy with many things. And there is an exam today also. Actually, the Bhakti Shastri students who are with us today are very brave and very good students. They have prepared in advance, because soon after this, they will have to sit for an exam. So maybe that's why also the attendance is a little less today. Thank you so much, Rukmini. Having your association is a blessing. And please come back again and again. We'd love to have you.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, everyone. All the best
Hare
for
Krishna,
your...
Mataji. Dhanavad pranam.
Thank you, Mataji.
Keep your eagerness going throughout the exam.
Mataji, we have not finished the preparation, but we have come to get the blessing from all the great devotees.
You
That
are
is-
intelligent.
Many prayers for your exam.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Mataji. Thank
See?
you.
You are intelligent. Not only hard work. 2 fingers, you remember? 2 fingers. 2 fingers short. You need the mercy, not only your own endeavor. So we wish you all the best. May Krishna give you all remembrance for your exam today. It's the Nectar of Devotion exam, so it's all nectar. You'll just be meditating on pure Krishna Bhakti. There is nothing better. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Rukmini. Very
Thank
happy to have you. Very
Thank you
happy.
so much. My honor.
Thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai.